It was past midnight when I booked the ride home. The streets were nearly empty, and the city lights flickered in the distance as the car pulled up. A black sedan, unmarked except for the small rideshare sticker on the windshield. The driver, a middle-aged man with tired eyes, barely acknowledged me as I slid into the back seat. The air inside smelled of stale coffee and cheap air freshener. I pulled out my phone, checking the route. Normal. 15 minutes to my apartment. Just another late-night ride home. I glanced up and caught the driver staring at me through the rearview mirror. Not unusual. Some drivers were just like that. I looked away, trying to ignore the way my stomach twisted slightly. A few minutes passed in silence. The car hummed along the quiet roads, the occasional street lamp casting long, flickering shadows through the windows. Then I noticed it. The seat next to me, empty just moments ago, now had an indentation, as if someone was sitting there. I froze. Maybe I had imagined it, the shadows playing tricks. I reached out, hesitating, then pressed my hand against the seat. It felt warm, as if someone had just been sitting there. I shivered. I glanced at the driver again. He wasn't looking at me anymore. His eyes were fixed on the road, but his grip on the steering wheel seemed tighter, white-knuckled. I swallowed, trying to shake off the unease. Hey, did you have a passenger before me? The driver didn't answer right away. His fingers twitched on the wheel. Then, in a low, almost reluctant voice, he muttered, "Not recently." A chill ran down my spine. I turned my gaze back to the empty seat, heart hammering. The indentation was deeper now, the seat belt slightly pulled, as if someone had just shifted their weight. I pressed myself against the door, suddenly hyper-aware of how small the car felt. The driver cleared his throat. "Don't look too long." My breath hitched. I forced my gaze forward, staring at my phone, pretending I hadn't heard him. The car took a sharp turn, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw it. A shape. A shadow where there shouldn't be one. A faint pressure against my arm, as if something unseen had brushed against me. I bit down on my lip to keep from making a sound. My hands trembled as I gripped my phone tighter, debating whether to jump out at the next red light. The driver let out a shaky breath. He gets curious sometimes. I couldn't breathe. "Who?" My voice barely came out. Silence. I turned slowly toward the empty seat. It wasn't empty anymore. A face, pale, hollow eyes. A grin too wide, stretching unnaturally across a shadowy form that flickered in and out of existence. I slammed my eyes shut. The driver spoke again, voice barely above a whisper. "Almost there." I forced myself to nod, nails digging into my palms. The ride couldn't end fast enough. The pressure beside me lifted. The seat creaked, as if something had shifted. I dared to open my eyes. The seat was empty again. No indentation, no seatbelt tugged, just empty space. The driver let out a breath of relief. "You're lucky." I didn't ask why. The car pulled up to my apartment. I nearly stumbled out, my hands shaking as I slammed the door shut. As the car drove away, I caught a glimpse of the back seat through the window. The indentation was back, but this time it was on my side. The train doors slid open with a tired hiss, and I stepped inside, letting the cool artificial air wash over me. The station had been nearly empty, and so was the train. Just a few flickering lights overhead, the faint hum of the tracks beneath, and a long, silent car stretching out before me. I had taken this last train home countless times before, but tonight felt different. I chose a seat near the middle, close to the window. The city outside was nothing but a blur of dim street lights and empty roads. I exhaled, rubbing my temples, exhaustion weighing on me. A long day at work, a late shift, and now this. Just a quiet ride home. At least that's what I thought. The door slid shut with a mechanical click, the train lurched forward, and I settled into my seat. That's when I noticed him. A man sat across from me, a few rows down. He wasn't there when I boarded. I was sure of it. His head was bowed slightly, face hidden by the hood of his dark jacket. He sat perfectly still, hands resting on his lap, shoulders unnaturally stiff. Something about him made my skin crawl. I turned my gaze away, convincing myself I was just being paranoid. Late-night trains always had strange passengers. Maybe he was just another tired commuter, like me. Minutes passed. The train rocked gently along the tracks. The dull hum of the engine and the distant sound of the wind against the windows should have been comforting. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I glanced at my phone. No signal. Another glance at the man. He hadn't moved. Not an inch. Not even the slightest rise and fall of his shoulders. I swallowed hard, gripping my bag tighter. My station was still a few stops away. The lights overhead flickered once, then again. For a split second, in the darkness between the flickers, I thought I saw his face. Not his face. Something else. A pale, grinning mouth, stretching far too wide, hollow, sunken eyes that locked onto mine in that brief moment of darkness. The lights came back on. The man was sitting exactly as he had been before. Still, unmoving. Hood down, face hidden. I sucked in a shaky breath, my pulse hammering in my ears. Had I imagined it? The train began to slow down. The station ahead was empty. My stop was still 2 stations away. I didn't care. I had to get off. The moment the train stopped, I stood up quickly, making my way toward the doors. My hands shook as I reached for the rail, willing the doors to open faster. A whisper. I froze. It came from behind me. Low, raspy, just barely audible over the hum of the train. I turned my head just slightly. The man was no longer sitting. He was standing, right behind me. The train doors opened with a soft chime. My breath caught in my throat as I stepped out, almost stumbling onto the platform. I didn't look back. The train doors slid shut. I expected to see my reflection in the glass. Instead, I saw his face, pressed against the inside of the door, mouth still stretched into that awful, unnatural grin. The train pulled away, disappearing into the dark tunnel ahead. I stood there, heart pounding, breath shaky. I had gotten off in time, or so I thought, because as I turned to leave the empty station, I heard something. A whisper, right behind me. The road stretched ahead, empty and dark, the headlights cutting through the thick mist that had begun to settle over the highway. It was past midnight, and I had been driving for hours. The only sounds were the steady hum of the engine and the occasional crackle of the radio struggling to find a signal. I was exhausted. The kind of exhaustion that made the road blur, made my thoughts heavy. I needed a break, a stop, coffee, something to shake off the creeping drowsiness. That's when I saw him. A lone figure, standing by the side of the road, just past the faded green sign marking the miles to the next town. He was tall, dressed in dark clothes, a backpack slung over one shoulder. His thumb was extended, the universal sign of a hitchhiker. I don't usually pick up strangers, but something about the quiet loneliness of the road made me reconsider. Maybe it was the exhaustion, or maybe it was the eerie emptiness of the night. I slowed down, pulling up beside him. The man stepped closer, his face obscured by the shadow of his hood. He didn't speak as he opened the door and slid into the passenger seat. "Where you headed?" I asked, forcing some casualness into my voice. His answer was quiet, almost too quiet. "Just ahead." I nodded, merging back onto the road. Silence settled between us. He didn't move much, didn't adjust his seat, didn't even glance out the window. Just sat there, rigid, his hands resting on his knees. Something felt off. I cleared my throat. "Been waiting long?" A pause, then softly. "A while." I glanced at him out of the corner of my eye. His posture was unnaturally stiff, his face still partially hidden in the dim light of the dashboard. The radio crackled suddenly, static flooding the silence. I reached to turn it off, but the second I did, I felt it. A shift. The air inside the car grew thick, suffocating. A sharp drop in temperature sent chills crawling up my arms. I gripped the wheel tighter. Something was wrong. My fingers itched to check the rearview mirror, but I resisted the urge. I had the overwhelming feeling that if I looked, I wouldn't see just the road behind me. The hitchhiker exhaled, a slow, heavy breath that didn't quite sound human. "You shouldn't have stopped," he murmured. My stomach twisted. I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. "What do you mean?" No answer. I risked a glance to my right. The seat was empty. The car swerved as my heart nearly stopped. I slammed the brakes, my breath coming in short gasps. The door had never opened. The seatbelt was still fastened, but the hitchhiker was gone. I sat there, gripping the wheel, the engine still humming beneath me. The road stretched ahead, dark and endless. The mist swirling in the headlights. Then I saw it. Up ahead, standing by the roadside, the same man, thumb out, waiting. I threw the car into gear and sped past him without looking back. But as I drove, I couldn't shake the feeling that he hadn't been waiting for just anyone. He had been waiting for me. The bus was nearly empty when I got on. Just the driver, a man slumped in one of the front seats, and a woman near the back, her face turned toward the window. The late-night routes were always like this. Quiet, eerie, filled with the occasional lost soul heading home. I took a seat near the middle, close enough to see the driver, but far enough from the few passengers to have my space. The fluorescent lights flickered slightly as the bus pulled away from the stop, the city outside blurring into the darkness. The man in the front didn't move, not even when the bus jerked forward. His head was tilted down, his arms folded across his lap. Asleep, maybe. The woman in the back sat unnaturally still, her reflection barely visible in the dark glass of the window. I exhaled and leaned back, trying to ignore the uneasy feeling creeping up my spine. The engine hummed steadily, the rhythmic sound of the tires rolling over the asphalt filling the silence. The bus stopped at another station. The doors hissed open. No one got on, but I swear, I heard footsteps, software, slow, moving down the aisle. I turned my head slightly, peering over my shoulder. The woman near the back was still there. The man in the front hadn't moved. And yet, I wasn't alone. I faced forward again, my hands gripping my bag a little tighter. Maybe it was my imagination. Maybe I was just exhausted. Then I saw it. A reflection in the glass across from me. A figure, sitting directly behind me. I hadn't heard anyone take a seat. I hadn't seen anyone board. But someone was there. The hairs on my neck stood on end. I didn't dare turn around. I tried to stay still, tried to breathe evenly, but my pulse was racing. The bus continued its journey through the quiet streets. The stops became less frequent. The buildings thinned out. The city lights faded, replaced by the dim glow of street lamps. The presence behind me didn't move, didn't shift, but I could feel it, watching, waiting. A deep, suffocating cold settled around me, seeping into my skin. My fingers trembled as I reached for my phone. No signal. I stole another glance at the reflection in the window. The figure was closer now. I sucked in a sharp breath. My station was coming up. Just a few more minutes. I could make it. The bus lurched as it pulled up to my stop. I shot up from my seat, heart pounding, moving as quickly as I could without outright running. The moment I stepped off, I turned to look inside. There was no one behind my seat. No one at all. The bus doors slid shut, and the vehicle rumbled away, disappearing down the road. I stood there, in the cold night air, my breath unsteady. Had I imagined it? Or had something simply left the bus when I did?